Hello and welcome to this month's reading wrap up. This is Sarah, and I'm coming at you today with the recommendations for everything that I read in July. And let's get started talking about the 13 books that I read this month. What's my favorite? Do I have a favorite? Did I like any of them? Did any of them waste my time? We'll see. It was an unexpected reading month in that finished a bunch of books that I wasn't even planning on, but I'm going to talk about it. So let's get into it now. All right. So the first book that I finished in July was Between Never and Forever by Britt Benson. So this was published in June of 2023. It's 484 pages. And this story follows Savannah and Levi. So this is a story about childhood friends who become estranged and go into separate paths and then are reunited unexpectedly. And, their love story unfolds from there. And it's a small town, single dad, rock star romance. So it just kind of follows along there. So the thing that is great about this story is that we see enough of the past we kind of understand why Savannah and Levi drifted apart. So when they came back together, it was pretty sweet. So anyway, here's the background. Okay, so we do get dual timeline. We do have past, present. Of course, we have dual POV. And we kind of learn about both Savannah's and Levi's rough childhoods, but in different ways. Savannah was definitely in an unsafe setting, whereas Levi was in a very strict religious and judgmental setting. So different things that impacted them negatively, but some things that ultimately drove them apart. So I don't really want to spoil it, but so I won't say much more than that. But when we meet the couple in the present, he is a contractor with his own construction company that builds movie sets for a small town in North Carolina where he lives. And Savannah is a rock star who's retiring from her band, and she gets a movie part. So she's actually an actress in a movie shooting in this town where Levi lives. And then they kind of get reunited. And like I said, their story unfolds from there. So I really liked this story. I thought it was really emotional. And there was definitely some surprising aspects of Levi's character that really played out, in particular in the spicy scenes that I really enjoyed. But I was like, oh, what? I was not anticipating some of the kinds of ways he was with her, which was so different than how they were growing up. So I enjoyed it. And I liked her. I liked the way that her character was developed, and her relatability I thought was there. So overall, it gave the story. So here we go. Spice, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Again, nothing outlandish, but some good times. And I gave the story 4.5 stars out of 5. So I did give overall the book 4.5 out of 5 stars. Okay, editing Sarah's here. Okay, so I was reviewing all of my footage for my wrap up of Crash and Burn by Amelia Finn, and I just messed it up. And it was also really long. So I'm hopping on here to give you the short summary and my ratings, the takeaways from Crash and Burn. So we're going to do that now. All right, so Crash and Burn is the 4th book in the Lost Boys series, and this story follows Axel and Hannah. So Axel is a firefighter, and Hannah works for Axel's sister. She's owns a bakery and does a bunch of catering. And they have known each other for a couple of years and have been best friends during that time. But really, they are in love with each other. So what's the problem, you would say? I know, right? What's the problem? So Axel's a firefighter, like I said, and he is really convinced that his job is much too dangerous to really be
Hannah's boyfriend. Like, it puts her like happiness at risk to be with him. So they spend a bunch of time together. They don't fully act like boyfriend girlfriend. They're definitely best friends, but he's careful not to really share his true feelings with her. And he doesn't rebuff her, but he knows he loves her. He knows she loves him, but he's just like, he pushes her away, keeps her at arm's length. Yeah. So Axel is 21, Hannah is 19, and you can tell. What do I mean by that? So I really felt like I was reading the story of young people. So they're technically adults, but the kind of thinking and the decision making is what you would do when you were that age. So it's appropriate, but also a little tough to read. This is my opinion. Okay. So it was tough for me to read because I got annoyed. I got really annoyed with some of the decision making and some of the pining and it was just kind of triggering. And not in like a content warning kind of way, but just in a like, wow, I really remember a time in my life when I used to pine after people and it was awful. So I don't love reading that kind of storyline. So that's unfortunately what this is. So anyway, it's back to the story. So something happens with Axel's crew that he reacts to by splitting, like leaving town, not telling anybody where he's going, and Hannah's devastated. So sometime later, Axel comes back into town, and their story picks up from there. So as with most Amelia Finn books, I can't say all, but most, there's a suspense element to it, like an ancillary drama, and Hannah's in danger, and we're not sure what's the source of the danger. So that gets wrapped up really kind of at the very end. And so their story gets wrapped up really kind of at the very end. And so it felt really rushed to me. And so for that reason, I, along with the immaturity and the slow burn and the like, just like, it's not miscommunication as much as like just TSTL. TSTL on both accounts, right? That I gave the Spice in this story 3 stars. I gave the story 3 stars. And so overall, I gave the book 3 stars. Okay, editing Sarah here. So I wanted to just pause and share with you guys that I read the full Perfectly Imperfect series by Neva Altaj in July. That's right. I started with Painted Scars, just picked it up because I was waiting for a new release to come out, and just said, oh, let's read this, and couldn't put it down, tore through the series, and I actually did read books 1 through 7 this past month in July. So I'm going to give my thoughts and my ratings on each of those books in a separate video, but did want to let you guys know that 7 of 13 books that I read was this series. So this series has been described as a very bingeable series for a very good reason. So I do recommend picking up the Perfectly Imperfect series by Neva Altaj. What I will say in this video is it is good if you read them 1 through 7 in order. It isn't necessary, however. So, it's the stories kind of build, but not really. But I wouldn't call them like discrete standalones. So take that for what it's worth. Might as well just start from 1 and go through the end. They are less than 300 pages each. Some of them are around 250 pages. So it's easy to just kind of read it, finish it. If you need a break, cool. If not, just keep going. Super enjoyable. Highly recommend it. But I'll have another video about that series in the description below.
Okay, so then let's talk about the Vows and Vendettas anthology. So the book that or the story that I read out of this anthology was Mr. Big by Bella de Corte. So, I mean, I haven't done it yet. I've been promising you all an author like showcase video about Bella de Corte. Her writing is spectacular. Y'all need to read it. If you want to read a story and you have like of hers, if you haven't yet, I actually don't know that I would start with this one, but I just love her writing and I was super excited to read this. So this story follows Tullio Bigatti and Leonora. She has a Greek last name. I don't remember what it is, but they call him Mr. Big. It's Bigatti, right? Not Bugatti, but Bigatti. And this is a Vegas mafia forced marriage. Yeah, it's not arranged marriage. It's kind of a forced marriage story. But she's like kind of willing, because what happens is she's like working hard to keep the roof over her head for her mother and her two half brothers who are minors, and she's like probably late 20s. So she manages a bar. It's not quite a strip club. It's like on the classier side, but it's on the strip. And one of her younger brothers, he gets his arm broken. God, I'm a spoiler. This is like a spoiler video. I'm going to put it in there. So one of her younger brothers comes home. He's injured. She finds out why he's transporting drugs for kind of a local supplier who she thinks works for Mr. Big. So she goes to confront Mr. Big, and gets caught stealing on purpose to be able to have an interaction with Mr. Big. And he can't believe she would do that, and is immediately also like really taken by her because she's really beautiful. And their story unfolds from there. So the thing that I really enjoyed about the story is that it's in an anthology. I don't even really know how long it was. I don't think it was 100 pages long. It was really short. So it was really nice to read just something really short. And from my girl whose writing I think is really unique and just enjoyable for me. It really set up a world in Vegas, because none of the other series that Bella de Corte has written about have been in, I think they're like, the Fauci family was all over the world, right? Paris, New York, Louisiana, of all places, right? But in Italy for sure, tons of books in Italy in that one. So aside from that, it's mostly been in New York. So I think she's really doing us all a favor and branching out to like the Vegas mafia scene. It's gonna be kind of a different vibe. And that's one thing that Bella de Corte does, I think, very masterfully, is has a vibe that's pretty unique for each series that she does. So I'm really excited to read more, because like this book teed up the next one, which is about Mr. Big's brother. I'm like really excited. I kind of hope that's full length. So this one was short. There is some spicy times. I give it 3 out of 5 stars. Like the timeline is like less than a week. So I typically am like grossed out by Insta-Love, but it's my girl. She does a good job. And it's for an anthology, right? It was like $1 or 99 cents on Kindle, and you get all these stories. And I haven't read any other stories. I don't know that I will, but I have it if I want to. If I need just a quick story, I'll have this anthology. So it'll be good. So, okay. So 3 out of 5 stars on the spice level. I gave this story 4 out of 5 stars, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So that's Mr. Big, story in the Vows and Vendettas anthology. Okay, and then I read Sincerely Your Inconvenient Wife by Julia Wolfe. This story released in July of 2023. It is 375 pages long. So this story follows Luca and Saoirse. So this is a marriage of convenience billionaire trope. Yeah, marriage of convenience. Okay. So we meet Saoirse and Luca in Dear Grumpy Boss, which is the first in this series. I think it's called the Harder They Fall series. Yeah, I think that's right. Look it up on Amazon. And so Luca has taken the reins of his family's motorcycle business. So he's the new CEO. And he, up until this point, has been this billionaire playboy. He's been a vice president, so he can have his life outside of work, and it's not going to be that consequential. But as the CEO, the shareholders need to see somebody more stable, more of a family man. Saoirse is someone who, she's kind of a free spirit. Like, she works temporary jobs, says she has this way of living where she says yes if she thinks that she's going to get something out of it, of whatever's being offered to her. So he ends up, offering to marry her. And there's a whole contract. She says yes. So they get married, and then the story unfolds from there. And we actually met Saoirse in Sweet Like Poison, which is book 3, I think, of Savage You, which follows Saoirse's brother Lachlan and his now wife Elena. So we actually get to see them because at this point, in that book, Sweet Like Poison, Saoirse, I think, was still in high school. So it's like 10 years later. And now Lachlan and Elena have a bunch of kids, and we meet them at the ranch. And it was just really great. It was really awesome because I really enjoyed that book, Sweet Like Poison. So it was good to see this kind of crossover tie-in kind of thing, this book. So I really enjoyed this story. I enjoyed the character development because I thought Luca was much more three-dimensional character than you would expect out of whatever playboy, billionaire. And in particular, the way that he was presented in the first book in this series. And then Saoirse, she was a free spirit, but she wasn't flighty. She was just kind of I'm just going to do my thing. I don't want to be stuffed into a box. If you recall it doesn't matter. She doesn't want to be stuffed into a box. And so she also doesn't want to have to meet her mother's expectations. Her mother is a state senator and is pretty rigid in the way that she wants her family to behave. And just, it's really impactful. And she's like, forget that. I don't want to do that. So, you get family dynamics, you get, people with different viewpoints having to really kind of reconcile that and come together. So I found it to be a pretty rich story. Not there was some emotion to it. It wasn't the angsty emotional, but yeah, there's some emotion, and I think definitely a good resolution. So I actually enjoyed this a lot more than I did Dear Grumpy Boss, which is the first book in this series. So I gave the spice in this story 3 out of 5 stars. I should really just have it be a 3 out of 3. So it was good. Oh, the dirty talk in this book was great. It was great. The dirty talk was great. And it was flowed. It wasn't outlandish, like I said. That's why I gave it this rating, because it wasn't outlandish. It just was an extension of who they were in their relationship, outside of the bedroom. Was oh, you could see them talking like this to each other during fancy times, right? I gave the story 4 out of 5 stars. So overall, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. I thought this was a good story. Okay, then I read Little Lies by Helena Hunting, or I think she publishes New Adult under H Hunting. Regardless, Little Lies. So this story was published November of 2020. This is 390 pages long. So this is okay. So this story follows Kodiak and Lavender. And this is a childhood best friends to enemies to lovers, new adult hockey romance. Okay, so Lavender starts going to school in Chicago, lives with her brothers, and she's technically a sophomore, but she spent her first year at home. She has anxiety problems for reasons that are discussed in the book. And Cody / Kodiak is a child, a family friend. And so he's her brother's best friend. So it's also her brother's best friend. And he lives in a house down the street. So the background is what was it? It's Pucked. So I don't remember the name of the series where all of these kids' parents' relationship was told, but I read all of those. I enjoyed them. And so this is a second generation for those. how do I describe this? Okay, so the deal with Lavender is she was always kind of a nervous child, but she was like at like 6 years old. They go to some carnival, and there's like one of those fun houses, and it's like all the boys. She has a twin brother, and but the parents are not with them, so it's like her brother. She's 6 or so. The brother's like 10. No, they're 8 because Cody is like 2 years older than she is. So they're 8 and 6, and they're in this fun house. She gets separated from them, and she ends up getting abducted for like 2 hours by this person who thinks he says, "Oh, you look like my daughter." So for whatever reason, he abducts her, and she's super freaked out, but she gets found after just a few hours. So at that point, Cody feels really guilty. And so he's like, I got to protect her. So they become best friends. And fast forward a few years, there's some other things that happen. The parents start to notice, like, that basically like cause him to be even more protective of her. So Cody at this point is like very, very protective of Lavender, to the point where the parents freak out and think that they're too dependent on one another, and it could be really toxic. And then Cody's family ends up moving away from Chicago, where they had been living. And so they kind of lose touch. And they had another interaction that went really poorly. So Lavender thinks that Cody hates her. She hates him. And so she's trying to navigate school with her brothers, who are super overprotective because she had been so like anxiety ridden her whole life that she's like had needed a protector, and now she really wants to like come into her own. And at the same time, Cody is around. She doesn't want to see him, but he's making himself kind of present in her life in ways that she doesn't want. He's like basically trying to be in her face, and she's just like, leave me alone. And the story unfolds from there. So yeah, I read this book. So this is the first book in this series. I can't remember the name of the series, but it's like Little Lies, and then Bittersweet Heart, and then Shattered Truths is being released in late August of 2023. So it hasn't come out yet. So I read Bittersweet Heart first, and then I read this. And so I was like, kind of out of order. So kind of knew some of the stuff that was going on that they weren't talking about in terms of one of their brothers in the story here. So it was like, okay, I know what happened. But regardless, I liked it, but I didn't love it. It just didn't quite hit, right? So it was pretty spicy, and I was actually surprised like how spicy it was, considering how old they were. Like, again, they're in college, so they're adults, but she's like 19. And there's some of the stuff they're doing, I'm like, I really hope 19-year-olds aren't doing that. Oh my God. It's so different than when I was 19. Huh. Anyway, so I gave the story on the spice level 3.5 out of 5 stars. I gave the story 3.5 out of 5 stars. So overall, I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Liked it, didn't love it. I preferred Bittersweet Heart to this one. So this one was just okay. Didn't really hit. So then the last book that I read in July was Overruled by Bella Matthews. This is, I think this is book 4 in the Defiant Kings. Yeah, it's book 4. It's in the Defiant Kings series. 255 pages. So this story follows Juliet and Beckett. And this is a best friend's brother. Excuse me. This is a best friend's brother billionaire marriage of convenience story. So Beckett's running for Senate, and he, when the story opens, is single, and all of his consultants are like, listen, you got to get married. This person, your opponent, is beating you in the polling because they're married. Just had a baby. Oh, isn't that great? Beckett's like, this is crazy. Meanwhile, Juliet is retiring from, like modeling, being a famous model. And she's returning home to the Philadelphia area where they all live. And at the same time, her dear cousin, who's probably just a couple years older than she is, has passed away unexpectedly. She has 2 children, and Juliet has been named guardian for these children. And she's like, I can't even keep a plant alive, let alone children. How's this going to work? So her aunt and uncle, who are the grandparents of these kids, are basically threatening to contest the will and the guardianship. So Juliet's lawyers are like, you need to be stable. What better way to be stable than to be married to this like billionaire Senate candidate, like senatorial hopeful, right? So they enter into a marriage of convenience relationship. It's like 2 years. This will be great. And the story unfolds from there. So, here's the thing. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't know why I keep reading these stories. This was better than the last series, or the last book, excuse me. So this one was better than the last book, which was Iced. This is much better. I liked the characters better. The timeline made sense because they've known each other for so long. This is her best. Juliet is Beckett's sister's best friend. They've been friends since they were in school. Like, we grew up together. He's known her for a long time. He's, I think, maybe 6 years older than she is, something like that. And so there's just a tiny bit of an age gap, but really she's like 30 maybe. And so he's like mid 30s. So, okay. So they kind of already know each other, but it's just like catching feelings. So I don't know. I thought it was really interesting. So these stories, where they shine is in this Megzy Times. That's where it shines. The rest of it, whatever. It's just a vehicle. Just a vessel for this Megzy Times. So I gave this story on the spice level 3 out of 5 stars. The story was 3 out of 5 stars. And so this was an overall 3 out of 5 star read. So this was, it was what it was. So overruled by Bella Matthews. Okay, so that's my wrap up for July. Those are the highs and lows and the hits and the misses for all of the 13 books that I read this past month. So let me know in the comments what you think of what I think. What books did you read in July that you really enjoyed? What books should I read in the next couple of months? I got some lists. I already got my TBRs into freaking January. I'm trying to be organized. But yeah, let me know. What should I read? What's your recommendations? What are your hits? What are your misses? All right. Thanks so much for watching. Hit subscribe, hit notify, and we'll see you next time.